Something beyond comprehension is happening to a little girl on this street. In this house, a man has been sent for as a last resort to try and save her.
I'd written women in comedies, but I'd never written a woman in a real solid story. And so I cast about him, who do I want? I don't want someone who looks as though she might be a Stepford wife or was brought up in Salem. I want someone like my good friend, Shirley MacLaine. Here's a woman who is bright, and yet, in a way, she is just as ordinary as a supermarket shopping cart. So that you will not be prepared for this person to have a child who is possessed, or whom she claims may be possessed.
I'm telling you that thing upstairs isn't my daughter. Now, I want you to tell me that you know for a fact that there's nothing wrong with my daughter except in her mind. You tell me you know for a fact that an exorcism wouldn't do any good. You tell me that!
Novel is one thing where the imagination can work, but you put it on the screen and you objectify. I mean, this story was begging to be a flop and could easily have turned into a laugh riot. Every studio passed. They were just afraid. I wasn't sure there was a movie in it. I thought, this needs an honest director that is not Catholic, that is agnostic on the subject, and can give this incredible story such a sense of documentary reality that it will work. I had seen The French Connection, and I wanted Billy Friedkin. And the Warner Brothers then grudgingly agreed.
After I was finally signed to direct the film, Bill said to me, now I have to tell you I have a great surprise. Here is my screenplay. And I took it home and eagerly read through it, and I thought it was not very good. I thought it was overwrought. I thought that it was filled with a lot of symbolism and underlined, and it wasn't the novel.
I thought that in order to deliver the novel faithfully, I had to do an extraordinary amount of compression up front. And to do that compression of the front end of the story, of the first third actually, required tricks. I remember 8 million flashbacks, everything it was a jumble.
I thought those adaptations he made were unnecessary, and I believed in the novel, which I told him, and I then took the copy of the book that he sent me and I marked it up with passages that I felt we could film.
Every night he would reread the novel, and he'd make these notes, and he'd come in and he'd say, I think we ought to start with this scene, then go to that scene and that scene. And we went through the whole book that way.
Well, what's wrong?
Well, why are they tearing the building down?
Shall we summon the writer? He's in Paris, I believe.
Hiding?
Not yet.
I was handed this cast by fate. Burston, for example. The studio wanted either Jane Fonda at that time, Audrey Hepburn, or Anne Bancroft. Jane Fonda, she said, why would I want to be involved with a capitalist rip-off piece of shit like this? She was in her anti-Vietnam phase. In the meantime, I got a call out of the blue from Ellen Burstyn. I had seen her in the last picture show, where she was very good in a small part. She said, well, I want to do Chris McNeil. I said, well, I have to tell you that, the studio's offered it out to 3 other actresses. They want to star. And she said, I understand all that, but she said, I think I'm destined to play this part, so I'd love to meet you.
He said, all right, I'll tell you, I'm not going to keep you dangling. It's between you and he mentioned another actress. And he said, and I'm flying to New York tonight to see her.
But by this time, I realized that Burstyn was so supremely intelligent, understood what we were doing.
He called me from New York and said, all right, you've got the part. And I said, oh, you saw her? And he said, no, I ran into her in the deli last night and she looked like hell. And I said, well, Billy, that's not fair. I look like hell in the deli too. And he said, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
You really don't want me to play, huh?
No, I do. Captain Howdy said no.
There were hundreds, if not thousands, of young women looked at for the part of Reagan.
I was a working child actor in New York doing modeling and commercials.
She was not even recommended by her agency. They had recommended about 30 or 40 other of their clients for that role, not Linda Blair. Linda Blair's mother brought her in on her own.
And Mother says to me, she said, we have an interview for a movie. And it's like, oh, really? Because you get, movies, that was still exciting. I didn't grow up in Hollywood.
I then decided to film this one scene. It was in an empty sound stage. The studio saw it, and they, since there were no star names involved with a 12-year-old girl, if I believed in her, go ahead. And the thing is that she is perfect.
Then he would have meetings where he'd ask me to start acting out things like, okay, now what I want you to do is, get on the couch and, writhe around in pain. Well, I was embarrassed. I was just embarrassed. And that's really what it was. He wanted to see how stable I was. So he realized I was very stable, went to a public school. I'm a Christian, and in my religion, we never discussed the devil. So to me, it was a fictitious character like people think of Frankenstein or something like that. It wasn't real to me.
Well, then let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damien Karras.
And I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
There were a lot of actors who wanted to play Karras in The Exorcist. Jack Nicholson wanted to play the part. Paul Newman. Everybody, almost every male star. But I didn't want a known actor. What I was really looking for was a priest who could act.
He came to see my play that championship season on Broadway.
And I felt that it just reeked of failed Catholicism.
I said, you want me to do the screenplay, right? He said, no. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to do a screen test for Father Karras. I said, you what?
And it was incredible. The camera loved him.
Father Karras, it's an honor to meet you, Father.
Von Sydow, I think, was the finest screen actor of that day from his films with Ingmar Bergman. Blatty had told me that the person he had in mind for this character was the French Jesuit priest Teilhard de Chardin, and it's Max von Sydow to me.
Of course, my approach was colored by my, say, Protestant upbringing. To me, the devil has never been scary. I was brought up with Scandinavian fairy tales and folk tales, and in many of those, the devil is kind of ridiculous. He's always a loser. Of course, I was totally aware of the fact that Father Merrin, he believes.
I'd like you to go quickly across to the residence, Damien, and gather up a cassock for myself. 2 surplices, a purple stole, and some holy water.
It was not important whatever my personal or private opinions were.
When I met with him, I realized how young he actually was. He had often played older in Bergman films, so we knew it was going to be a lot of makeup for him, but he was like a guaranteed performance.
I believe we should begin. Do you want to hear the background of the case first, Father? Why?
And then Billy thought to cast Tom Birmingham, Father Birmingham, as the president of Georgetown. You can't get that sense of genuine sanctity from an actor. And then I introduced Father Bill O'Malley to Billy. Billy fell in love with him for the part of Father Dyer. They were kind of good luck charms. You know, how am I doing? You know?
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
It deals with very heavy forces, and I was a little worried about what that would mean to work with the...
I know that there's been a lot of controversy about certain scenes that are out of the film, particularly the last scene. My feeling as the interpreter of that material was, we don't need it.
But there's a sense in which we did need it, Bill.
Father Dyer, you like films? Sure.
Many people to this day interpret The Exorcist as a downer.
Well, I get passes. In fact, I got a pass to the Crest tomorrow night. Would you like to come?
What's playing?
I thought that the scene from the novel between Kinderman and Dyer would allow the audience to feel, hey, cool it, everything's okay.
I've seen it.
Another one. Had your lunch?
No.
You know,
You knew this relationship that Karras had with Kinderman lives now through Father Dyer. God's in his heaven, all is right with the world. That's something I think that the film could use.
I don't want to direct the way people think about this beyond what is already, to me, self-evident. People actually believed what they saw on the screen. Some of them maybe had a different interpretation of that. That's always bothered you. I've always rejoiced in it.
You son of a bitch!
Everybody who sees the film takes from it what they bring to it.
God damn you! Take me! Take me!
I don't want him to think the devil won. I just...
Well, to me, it's how could they possibly think that? Because this relates to certain other cuts in the film. The dialogue between Merrin and Karras in a kind of a break in the exorcism scene, which in the film now is just 2 guys sitting on the stairs, but which you had written a quite beautiful dialogue for the 2 of them.
Why this girl? It makes no sense. I think the point is to make us despair. To see ourselves as animal and ugly. To reject the possibility that God could love us.
Of all the scenes cut from The Exorcist, the most talked about is unsurprisingly not some theological exchange, but a creepy special effect known simply as the spider walk. Although it hit the cutting room floor at a very early stage, this eerie sequence, which features in Blatty's novel, has become legendary among fans of the movie.
Chris has just come back from the doctor's office, and she knows now they've got to get a psychiatrist.
Hi, Chuck. Come on in.
Suppose you heard.
Heard what?
Haven't heard.
Burke is dead, and then...
Burke is dead, and then in the novel, Sharon gasps, and Chris turns and looks, and down the steps is Reagan coming, contorted,
backwards.
looking for all intents like a tarantula.
So on the one hand, she had to cope with the death of her friend. I could not make the transition to how she would have reacted right on top of that to the spider walk.
Bill, it may have been could be a problem in the writing. You know, I really mean that, because what you're asked to do there is deal with a double climax.
Well,
either one is the end of the scene.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
I just thought of how I should have written it, Bill. Actually, the moment she hears the words, "Burke's dead," there should have been a scream instantly from Sharon, Chris, before there's any time to react to that, and the boom.
That would have been great.
Oh, God.
first time anyone had seen the film but the filmmakers. And there was only 5 executives allowed to come to the screening, and there was a guard at the door.
We all look at the movie, and it's a shocker. It's a shocker.
All the executives got up and they just looked at each other and didn't know what to say.
There was one gentleman, a high-level executive, who suggested that it might be best if we shelved the film and never distributed it.
They were really, I think, torn about the power of it.
He thought it was just totally obscene and should not be shown to people.
And they said, we have to call Billy Friedkin right now, and they all just walked out of the door.
They talked about it for about 5 minutes and shut down that idea.
The next thing I heard, Billy was on an airplane coming to Los Angeles to finish the film. If they didn't like it, he was going to stay in New York.
The first time I saw the film was at a sneak preview, and I sat next to Billy. And I remember we held hands and practically broke each other's fingers with the tightness of the grip.
The film started, it's just a natural opening with the Iraq sequence, a la kind of documentary feeling. And then it gets into the Georgetown, and it gets a little more intense.
Who are you?
There was a moment where the whole audience together went, oh, like that. And I realized that everybody had been holding their breath together.
There was a lot of disturbances early on in the movie, a lot of noises and strange reactions happening.
I saw a woman walk she must have been in the 3rd row, walking up the aisle, a little unsteadily, with her hand to her head. And when she got close enough, what I heard her saying was, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
People started screaming at the screen. They started hiding and ducking, and some people were running up the aisles to get out.
And when it was over, nobody applauded. Everybody just sat there. They didn't know what they had seen.
And my heart sank. I said, we're dead. We're dead.
7 or 8 of our top executives are seated alone in the theater. Joe, what happened here tonight? I don't know, fellas. Why were people running up and down the aisles? They were getting sick. What do you mean getting sick? They were getting sick physically. They were throwing up. Okay, what else happened? Fellas, I don't know what happened tonight. I saw the same film. All I tell you is the other 900 people who saw this film are all congregated outside this theater, talking. Not one person has gotten in their car.
Literally lined up around, I think, 2 or 3 blocks.
We never had enough theaters, so we had to add theaters nightly to it, for the lines.
And it was in every newspaper, magazine.
Which is what happens on an event kind of movie. It just transcends anything that any publicist or marketing people could do.
It has a very strong impact, and if you are, how should I say, if you have a lively imagination, anything can happen with a film like that, if you're not prepared.
Billy Graham said publicly at the time the film was in the streets, there is a power of evil in that film, in the fabric of the film itself. I have great respect for Billy Graham. I thought that one of the most foolish statements I've ever heard. I would have attributed it to senility, except he was only 39 or 40 at the time.
There is an evil in this movie, but it forces you to confront it. It doesn't pussyfoot around it.
Yes, I think there is evil in the film, and it was intended that there be evil in the film. And yes, I think that there is good in the film, and that was intended too. And good.
From my point of view, is there a message? Yes, which is to follow a positive spiritual walk in life. We're only here for a short period of time. Can you go the wrong way? Absolutely. This film shows you that.
I was shocked by the perspective it opened for me about our days and our attitude to a younger generation. And
to children.
All the people that make these outrageous claims about it just don't know what they're talking about. Perhaps it can affect you that way. Well, good. I'm glad it affected Billy Graham that way. I'm sure it's a lot better than having him sit before some, stupid film on television that portrays Jesus with a halo around his head and people, getting all goo-goo-eyed around him and, the way Christianity is normally portrayed.
The demon is a liar. He will like to confuse us. But he will also mix lies with the truth to attack us. The attack is psychological, Damien, and powerful. So don't listen.
There is a power to move you and have a disturbing effect upon the viewer, which is greater than the sum of any of its parts. It's enormous, and it's mysterious, but my God, it's not a power of evil.
Power of Christ compels you!
The original composer was Lalo Schifrin, and Billy Friedkin had brought Lalo in to screen the film.
And there was a lot of pretentious ooga booga about, the kind of presence or feeling or vibe that the music was supposed to have.
Lalo said, "Trust me, it'll be wonderful." So he went away and he wrote the score of The Exorcist.
When the time came, it was like, I don't know how many people were out there, like 100 of LA's finest musicians strike up the band.
And anyhow, Lalo's sitting there with his chest out, and they play this score. It's a beautiful score, but it was all over. It was kind of a silence.
And it was like, get this fucking Brand X Stravinsky out of here. I mean, he went ape shit. Billy did.
So they stopped the recording right in the middle. I mean, you have 110 guys standing there, and you just say, go home.
And fired him right there on the spot with his wife and his agent and everybody. I mean, it was like, look, that's it.
And Billy says, give me that music. So we took the music off the recorder, handed it to him. He ran out in the front of the Tadeo and threw it across the street into the parking lot. He said, that's where that music belongs.
Billy said to me, did you ever hear of a record called Tubular Bells? I said, yeah, Mike Oldfield. He says, go up and get that.
After cutting the opening sequence of Iraq, we kind of went through the whole film and repaced it. Looking at it, I thought, well, there's a lot of exposition, basically, that you really don't need because it's slowing the film down, like taking a walk with Reagan through Washington, seeing all the monuments. Sequences like that didn't pertain really to where this film was going.
Chris McNeil.
Please go away.
I'm Father Karras.
Suscríbete y toca la campanita, así podremos avisarte cada vez que haya un nuevo vídeo disponible.